Hello ladies and gentlemen, Panzer here, and today we're taking a look at the Flock. And as much as I want to do first impressions of this game, it really isn't in a state where it seems ready for that, so it doesn't really seem as fair. However, it does raise a couple of interesting points, and here to discuss them with me is the lovely TinyPixxels, also known as Pip.
Hi. I'm the carrier.
I was wondering if that was you.
I'm very scared. I just managed to attack somebody. And oh, there's two of you there. I'm coming after you.
So, the basic premise of this game, you are a form of monster that appears to be a sort of dying race. And you're all after this artifact of light for some reason. I think the monsters seem to be based on gargoyles, because if you stand still, you become... Ah!
Yeah, you can... Ah! Oh! You can also make decoys of yourself and switch in between those. Just to throw the carrier player off or whatever. Oh, I did good! I did good that round. I'm catching you up. Oh, I understand. You can spend your score to... Right, okay. There was a mechanic that isn't explained in any of the tutorial or anything, and I've just worked it out all by myself, so I feel kind of clever. The game, when you die, gives you like a highlighted part of your score, and it says, hey, so if you want to reload into the game faster, you can spend some of your score to do so.
Yeah.
But nowhere in the tutorial does it tell you anything like that. Which is kind of
no,
sad.
the tutorial does not really explain too many things about the game. So, if we go through the tutorial, right, so what it's actually taught me is how to move, jump, and sprint, which anybody familiar with FPS games would already know how to do, but, okay, to their credit, at least they go through it. What it doesn't explain are things like the special abilities, like what you have a demon's call thing that you can do, which... gives you some sort of bonus, and it also shows your position as well as other monster positions on the map if they answer that call as well, and then you will get some sort of bonus. But that's only explained through some sort of text. If you go through the actual advanced tutorials, it is actually explained there, but it doesn't show you how to use it or how it actually works. So the basic tutorial doesn't really teach you much at all. I think I just got myself killed there. Yeah, I died.
Yeah.
And there we have it! The death counter! So...
That doesn't explain that it's a death counter, nothing like that.
No. Alright, this is the actual part of the game I like. So, on my screen right there, you've seen I was running through a tunnel to get into the map, and that's kind of nice. It makes respawn seem a little bit more monster-like and a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, the fact that you come in through the vents like a real monster would, you know, that's kind of a nice touch. It gives you more of a feel for what you're playing as. Unfortunately, as far as I can see, the rest of the game kinda doesn't.
Yeah, oh,
which
also
is sad.
To their credit, they have got like the sort of feeling of the monster pretty reasonably well done. Like, the sprinting, you know, you've got running along the ground. It's got, I suppose, alright sounds to it, and it has that sort of camera movement that simulates that sort of head movement that the monster probably would have. I'm not a big fan of the motion blur and sort of sharp FOV change that it does every time you sort of stand up and crouch down.
No! No! Sorry.
Oh.
To its credit, playing as the carrier is genuinely tense in some situations.
Yeah, what we've just seen there is the carrier getting surrounded, and I think 2 players actually died there.
Yes,
not just
and
the
then the third one got me. I was playing as the carrier there, and I could see 2 of them coming towards me in various places. The issue that you have is if you stand still, your flashlight starts to fail. You have to keep moving to keep the flashlight, to keep the monsters away.
Yep.
But yeah, they've put in a couple of ways of you tracking the artifact. So, apparently you should be able to see the artifact from a long way away because it gives off this light. But standing still gives you limited vision because it makes you petrified. So you can't see where the light is. There's a bunch of things like that where the game had a really good idea but doesn't implement it particularly well.
Yeah, and I would actually agree with that. Also, I'm looking at the score screen, and I can't tell exactly what caused this player to win. I'm guessing it's the number of times he became the carrier.
They also got more objectives, I think.
No, they got one objective. I think you had the highest number of objective scores that round too. So I'm not sure why they were highlighted as the winning player.
To be fair, that player themselves, in the after-game chat, said, "I don't get it. Why did I win?" That tells you exactly how much information this game gives you about the mechanical sort of ins and outs of it. Genuinely, the people playing it don't understand why they won. I'm looking at two players who've just spawned in on top of each other and are just fidgeting away.
Oh.
So we'll just leave them.
So, we talk about this as well, it's supposed to be more than what you're seeing right here, and it's supposed to have this definite ending to it. That death counter, or rather the lives counter, if you want to call it that, is supposed to lead to something when it ticks down to 0. So, as a social experiment, maybe, how well thought out is it? And first off, I'm going to say it's a very flawed experiment already. And the reason I think that is it has a very, very high life counter. So you have a lot of lives to clear before the ending is reached. That is dependent on a lot of people playing, or at least people playing frequently enough for that to actually tick down in any significant manner. So already off the bat, that has that problem. And then, what's that actually supposed to achieve, at least for the players? Because I'm not really seeing any clear objective or any incentive for the players to actually do that, aside from just deliberately suiciding to get the counter to tick down.
We've been promised that through various interviews and things, again, if you're just buying this game on Steam and picking it up just because it looks kind of horror-ish and cool, you're not potentially going to know about this lives counter thing. It doesn't explain that anywhere in the game. We've been promised that when we get to 0, we get a finale. We get a definite... now, I take it from... Oh, I fell. I take it from the way that they're talking about it that it's going to be some kind of deathmatch showdown to the last life. But then again, that just concretes this thing of, alright, so we'll all sit in the tutorial and kill ourselves over and over again and see which one of us gets hit last, you know? It's yeah. There's not much point to it, and it's not explained anywhere. I know they're trying to keep it vague, but there's a difference between keeping it vague and keeping it so hush-hush that most of your players don't understand what's going on.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's like, how much information can you give as well with regards to this? Because I think the biggest problem with this is that nobody will understand. We already see that people are looking at this as a very vague concept. It's an interesting and intriguing idea, but it's not fleshed out well enough. And we've already covered the execution already. But even as an idea, it's not fleshed out well enough for me to fully understand what the point of it is. Because, yes, we're working towards this finale, so as a player, what's in it for me?
That's the thing. It's going to be really interesting to see where they go with this. And I'm all for social experimentation in games. I really am. I think it's a really interesting concept, right?
Yes.
But keeping it that vague where your players don't know what they're aiming for, without reading several interviews and trying to read several subtle clues that you may or may not have hidden in said interviews with various news outlets. That's not the way to go about it. It's just not.
And yeah, if I was to look at this as just an ordinary person browsing through the Steam store for something to buy and play, I'd look at this going, well, it's not a full price title. That's the first thing. So, you know, we'll have a look at it and see whether it's what it's actually all about. And the store page paints an interesting picture. Something along the lines of basically every other sort of multiplayer horror game. It kind of gives you that sort of image, even if it's a little bit vague. But that's not really what it is. I mean, sure, if you look at the base gameplay, it does seem to suggest that. But there's more to it that the developers want you to see that they haven't shown you. And I think that's a very, very strange approach if that's deliberate.
The issue that I have with it is that it's selling itself as this asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. If this was an asymmetrical multiplayer horror game, I would be in this call with you on the edge of my seat going, no, constantly. Because I don't deal well with horror, I don't deal well with suspense and everything. I think I've done that once since I started talking to you, and that was where the game, you guys were clever. And I had two of you in front of me and one of you behind me, and one of you eventually got me.
Yeah.
It's not executed in any way similar to any of the really good horror games out there. It doesn't lend itself to that genre particularly well. I can see what they were going for. Again, I can see the horror elements there, the fact that it's dark and moody and the character design and everything. But there's no tension.
Because as the carrier, you have such a strong weapon against them. They instantly die whenever they touch the light. So if you were to just keep the light on them, they can't move. They'll have to stay there. I mean, I guess that's where the decoys and all that come in, but
nobody is using them cleverly.
Yeah, nobody knows how to use it. I don't know how to use it, and I guess if you really go and look through the tutorial text, you might know how to do it, but
no. The tutorial text is a page long. In fact, actually, I'm just going to drop out of the game. I'm going to go and look for that advanced page just to be able to see what it says about that screen, because otherwise it's going to bug me.
So this is what we're actually looking at here. This is the advanced tutorial page. And these are supposed to be the special abilities for the flock and for the carrier. Now, the flock call is supposed to highlight all the members of the flock, provided they answer that call, and that'll give them a boost to their speed and their attack. Not that that matters at all, because your attack is a one-hit kill on the carrier. So, I guess a speed boost, maybe. But that says press Y, right? And for the flock decoy, it's press B. So, the assumption then is that that is for a 360 pad.
Yeah.
But it doesn't use the icons.
It's, if you go down further, no, where is it? Carrier light range. Press RB to shorten the light beam. Press LB to lengthen the light beam.
Yeah. That is probably the clearest sign that it is for a 360 controller, because it's referring to the bumper buttons. And then, of course, light toggles, it says X, which is a bit strange because...
which we know is E.
Yeah. Let's have a look at the controls then. So, keyboard and mouse. It has... does it have rebindable keys? I'm clicking on them. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, they are rebindable. 1 point to Gryffindor. It's rebindable.
So, because this is a video and I think this should be highlighted. Now, I've got this in a 720 window because the game doesn't work at 1080. Please, please, please go and look at the controls for the 360 gamepad. And if I'm on a 720 window in the middle of my screen, I cannot read what that controller says.
Ah. Yeah, that is not easy to read at all. No. So, UI design in this game has some problems. It has some problems. And it has problems that should not exist in a full release title. Yeah. Okay.
Honestly, that picture, just moving it up to the right, would allow you to see that, would give it more room to be able to see that better. And that's a really simple thing. I'm not a designer. I haven't got an artistic eye to save my life. But I understand that if that were up on the right-hand side, there would be more room for that text and okay.
And because I have this running at 1080, I want to point out this gigantic empty space where they have the concept art. The concept art is nice, but it doesn't help when you want to read things. My suggestion for this would have been put this diagram of the controller, make use of the entire space, and put a background behind it. You know, at least like a slightly more opaque colour behind that, so you can actually read the words, because right now they're floating on top of concept art, which frankly is quite busy. It is quite busy, and they've made the controller diagram translucent, which doesn't help.
See, I kind of expected it to be on a more MMO scale. I didn't expect it to be arena rounds.
That's what I was expecting. I thought it would be big map, maybe with not so much detail, big map, one carrier, and let's say at least 20 people. 20 monsters that are easily killed. So a single round could knock off 300 of them even, because of how many people would be dying per round.
That would have been more appropriate for the death number that they've chosen.
Yes.
The death number that they've chosen is really high, and you've only got to sit in that main menu and watch it slowly tick down, and it is ticking down so slowly. It was the first thing that struck me about it. I was worried that this game that I'd bought either had that static death counter at the start and it refreshed every time you played, or just no one was playing it.
Yeah. So that's why I'm looking at it, and that brings me back to the original point that I made about it being a flawed experiment, in that it hasn't been thought out that well, actually, because that number is very, very high, and it's dependent on a frequently playing, moderately large player base in order to have any sort of effect on that number at all.
Yeah, now that I'm talking to you about it, it's quite tense, and I think it's gonna suffer from the same thing as Evolve, where if you are talking in a team of however many people, and you're all coordinating, and you know who the monster is, and you're trying to guess what they would do because you know what kind of player they are, that makes it exciting and fun. You're the carrier, aren't you? Wow. Yeah, that makes it exciting and fun. Just playing on your own actually is gonna get quite dull.
Yep.
Because again, there's no teamwork, there's no...
Yeah, the game doesn't incentivize teamwork in any way, because you're all out for the same objective. But yeah, so this as a social experiment, even that is flawed, and I think, and when you look at the execution, you combine these two things together, it just seems like something that might not even see the actual end result then, simply because
that time is so high.
Yeah, one, the actual number is so high, but at the same time, the state that the game is in is going to put enough people off it that you won't have enough players to sustain the game. So either they're expecting the game to last long enough for people to want to do that, or they're expecting a lot of players to die while playing, and I just don't see that happening that often. Given that you are in the way that your monster is designed, you should be playing very stealthily, so you shouldn't be dying that often either.
You say that.
No, as in like as compared to shooters.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Against things like I mean, we've been looking at the Black Ops beta recently.
Yes.
And a friend of mine texted me the other day to say, hey, so I've been playing for half an hour. You don't want to know how many times I've died? And I'm thinking, well, in half an hour I'm here. I want to be skulking about, and I want to be tracking, and, you know, I want to be trying to take that light. I don't want to be dying over and over. I want to be being careful and clever about things. That's the way the game is built. So, yeah, as a concept, that's really cool that it has this specific lifespan. But this is the wrong game to carry a specific lifespan.
Yeah. So they pitch it as something that eventually this will die forever, and it just seems like might be dead on arrival.
Oh, go on, let your light run out, I dare you. Go on, let it run out.
I'll switch it off, and I'll run away.
Wait, where did you run to? No! Ah! No! For real, stop burning me! Ah!
And the guy behind you got me. And like, those little moments like that can be quite fun.
But I think that's more to do with the banter between you and I.
Yeah, probably.
I'll put that down to that.
Like they say, you know, like, oh, well, why did I hit escape? Reflex. My brain wants to leave. No, but it comes down to, like, any game you play, well, pretty much any game you play, however bad, can still be fun with the right kind of people. And
yes.
That does not reflect on whether the game is good or not. Right, so this is the slums map then.
I take it so. The maps are all quite big, but there's no defining features to let you know where you are on each map, I feel. I don't know if you feel the same, if it's just my sense of direction that is terabad, because potentially that's what that is.
Okay,
I'm lost.
The other player that's with me is just sort of quite confused and following me around.
They probably think you know the way to the
well, we're standing
artifact.
next to the artifact.
Oh, are none of you going for it?
No.
Oh. One of you knows the other has to die.
I think that's why he sort of saw it and was just like, I'm gonna wait.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait and then take it off you. Because if he can get a player kill as you're setting it up...
I guess that's worth more to him, definitely.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It's actually more adversarial than cooperative. Even though you're all on the same team, technically.
Which is almost sad, because if this was some kind of pack hunting simulator, this would be actually, there we go, right? So your deaths are your carrier deaths. You need to work as a pack to bring down that carrier. You have to earn those deaths. Already a better system than what we have here.
The thing I like about this, though, is that there's a lot of, like, planning, in a way, when you want to take down the carrier.
It's a very clever play on stealth, actually. Because you have to be, if you're setting up decoys, you have to have your decoys somewhere that you want to get back to. If they're down underneath you, you have to jump down on them before they turn around or without them seeing you. If there's somebody else they're going to contest you for it, you have to be in a position where you can get the light and take them out quite quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of planning. Just running in the direction of the light doesn't do you any favors whatsoever. Here's a thought for you, okay? Considering the sort of graphical and technical... Oh, somebody screamed! Did you see it?
Yeah, somebody just did it right next to me and I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Oh. Do you think they put too much focus on it being this wonderful, almost artsy concept, and not enough focus on building an actual game? Or do you think that's kind of unfair?
On one hand, I would like to say that it's possible that that's what happened. But at the same time, it's not something that I could also fairly say. Because... well, without having seen the original design of the game anyway, it would be very difficult to make that call on what their actual focus was. But looking at the marketing alone, it does seem like that it's possible that that was what happened. That they put all this focus into the experiment side of it and then, yeah, neglected the gameplay side of it.
I mean, we can look at things like... Again, I didn't win there because... I was 10 seconds behind. Wow.
But again, I don't know whether that's why you lost. It's just...
It's... yeah, it's a random combination of... because you didn't die as the flock at all there.
Yeah.
So it's this random combination of which score is more important, which it just doesn't tell you. It doesn't tell you how long the match is going to go on, so once you've reached 100 points... again, like 11:03 is a really weird amount of time for it to go on.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's actually ending the rounds.
No. Which
No
again
idea.
doesn't bode particularly well for the game.
Right.
You sound a little bit defeated.
I don't know, I guess I'm a little bit disappointed because I was hoping that at least on the experiment side of things, it wouldn't be so pointless. Whereas looking at it now, it just really doesn't make much sense at all. I'm hoping that more information comes out about this in the near future and it actually gets patched to the point where it makes more sense. But
then how can they do that without changing sort of core
no, I'm just
gameplay
talking about
side of
fixing the
things?
UI so that at least it doesn't put people off when they first play it.
Oh.
Polishing the game to the point where it actually looks like a full release game, like it's supposed to be. But I'm looking at this as a game that doesn't really have a point then. Because it has an intended direction with this whole population counter and this whole dying race thing, but the gameplay side of it suffers so much as a result of all the flaws that we've just found that in the end it becomes a dull game with this possibly overhyped experiment concept attached onto it, and I just don't know where it's gonna go from there.
Broken game aside, I think the main issue that it has is that this point that it has, this experiment that it's doing, isn't mirrored in any way in the mechanic. Even down to, what was that thing called that 22 Cans did? I can never keep that, curiosity.
Yes, what's in the cube
What's
thing.
in the box? Yeah, what's in the cube. So the idea was you mined away at a cube to find out what was at its center. And even that, in the experiment part of it, like how many people would band together, what kind of messages would they write in it, what, you know, who would carry on until that last bit, who would win, who would try and work it out. All of it was geared hand in hand with its message, with its kind of with its experiment. All the mechanic and experiment went hand in hand. This doesn't. This is just, so there's a mechanic in the game and we'll count it and we'll say that it's and that's not what it is. It's cool that it has a limited lifespan, but it doesn't work as any kind of meaningful experiment at the moment.
And on top of that as well, the experiment side of things gives the player a clear direction. Like, not just in terms of, like, mechanically the experiment is tied into it, but also, for example, in Curiosity, giving people an actual clear goal that they can work towards. You can actually see that there would be some people that would decide to work together or not, but ultimately they have this goal that they're all trying to work towards. In Rust, it's the same sort of thing. The game is about survival, about crafting, and, you know, kind of banding together to try and survive against the other people. But the experiment side of things is that it injects that idea of race and soon to be gender and differences you can't do anything about that inject the whole cultural idea from the outside world into the game. That, while it may not be mechanically tied into the game as such, but it creates an environment where outside issues can take place, and that in itself is an interesting experiment. This, on the other hand, the population counter is one thing. It's a statistic tracker. It's like a leaderboard in a game, essentially. It's something you can check, or you can disregard it entirely. But in this case, I can't see any clear goal for the player, because it's talking about a death counter, essentially. So aside from players deliberately killing themselves, what is it trying to incentivize the players to do, if at all?
That's the thing. I mean, we're pushed into these... we said it was 5-player, right? These 5-player matches. over and over and over again and over and over and over again. And the game says, hey, so you have the glowy name at the end of the game. You were the best player. And one of the things that it tracks is that you died the least. But that's not what the overall aim of the game is. Why are these two things at odds?
Yeah.
They don't make any sense in the same game.
Yeah, because we're talking about community goals here, where the player base is geared towards a particular objective. Another example, Elite Dangerous had a community goal where players could supply a station to get it constructed and become an actual active station for people to use. Yeah. That was a community goal, there was an incentive given, and players had a clear objective and set ways to complete said objective. This is contradicting itself in so many ways. We talk about it ticking down to the finality or the finale of the game, and then sort of in a way implying that it's a good thing that you didn't die. Yeah.
It rewards you for not dying, but by not dying, we don't get to see what the end of the game is. And I'm not sure what you're like with video games, but I'm one of these people, and I'm finding it with the games that I'm playing obsessively at the moment. I'm in the process of unlocking a bunch of endings for a game. And I'm constantly playing runs of Isaac being like, I want the next ending, I want the next ending, I want the next ending. I am very much geared towards, I will follow the story along and I want to know what happens. Gamers are geared towards getting to the end of their games. Yes. Yeah, okay, so the journey there is important, but once we get to the end, we know we've accomplished something. But here, there is this toss-up of, do we actually want to play the game? Or do we want to get to the end? And that happens on so many levels. For one, the game dies. If we go for this community goal, the game dies. We no longer have this game that was sat in our Steam library. It doesn't work anymore. Potentially. We don't know, but potentially that's what could happen. But by reaching that community goal, you're also a bad player. And that nobody wants to feel like a bad player.
Yeah, it just seems so counterintuitive, because it would be like jumping into a match of Call of Duty and going, you know, you can get the best weapon in the game if you just die 100 times this round.
In a game where death is an inevitable thing, again, like bringing up Isaac and the scissors, this item that you have to die repeatedly for. I unlocked that today just by playing the game, because it's a roguelike, death is something that happens over and over again. In 11 or so minute matches, we are seeing things like 1 death per player. Death isn't something...
on average, 1 to 2.
Death isn't something that the game is very high on. Again, like we said, it promotes this stealth thing, where you use your decoys to hide from the player. You have this paralysis where you stop and you are very careful. Death isn't a thing that the game is built around, but they've built the game around this death thing. And it's, again, like the game is completely at odds with each other. The thing is, I don't really see the point in having a community mechanic, as it were, a community goal, in a game that has no sense of community either.
Yes, that's the other thing as well, because we're looking at not just it's not even going to be a very large player base based on the reception of the game. But yeah, so I think the conclusion on this, it's a very strange experiment that doesn't seem to be very clear about its direction or its overall intention when it comes to the actual game, and the game itself on its own is at the best a dull multiplayer game. At the best. At the worst, it's flawed from the ground up, frankly. I wouldn't recommend this to anybody unless they're very interested in what the final result is. But just be prepared, as we're looking at the menu down, looking at it tick down, it's going to be a long time. And with that, thank you very much for watching, and thank you for joining me for this one, Pip. If you want to go check her out, she's available at twitch.tv/TinyPixxels with 2 X's, or her YouTube channel with the same name. So thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.